My husband and I were like Bonnie and Clyde. Wait until you hear the crimes we committed. If you're new here, hi, my name is Flor. I am Cuban and I live in Jamaica for 21 years. I have been married to my husband for the same amount, but we have been together for 22. We got married very young in Cuba. I migrated to Jamaica in 2003, and this is one of those stories that is going to help you understand what I mean when I say that Cuba is like nowhere else in the world. The story I'm about to tell you happened 21 years ago. The Cuba that I left behind is not exactly the same Cuba that you will see today, but it's still Cuba same way. It is still different. It is still a world apart. I always say if you plan to travel to Cuba, you have to prepare yourself as if you're going to another planet because you have never seen or lived or experienced anything like it. That is if you travel to Cuba to immerse yourself in the culture, get to know the people, what they're all about. If you go to an all-inclusive resort, then but then again, we're living in the city, and this is where my entire encounter with the law started. Illegal activity number one. Are you are you ready? Okay. All right. Illegal activity number one. A Cuban living with a foreigner in a non-registered Airbnb. Cuba was basically the place that started Airbnb. Before Airbnb was a thing, we used to do Airbnb. It's basically somebody's house where they rent a room and they charge in US dollars. Back in the day, only foreigners could stay there. Cubans could stay there, but they would have to be married to a foreigner. I was not married to a foreigner as yet. In order to stay there as married to a foreigner, you will have to show your marriage certificate. This is for another story, by the way. We went to the city to live in the city, and there was a lady that was renting a self-contained studio. It was a bedroom with a bathroom and a little living area, and they were adding on a kitchen to it. Very central area, beautiful home, beautiful family. But she had no registration, she had no papers, she was paying the government no taxes for renting that room. That is illegal activity number one. Illegal activity number two is that I was a Cuban and I was there with a foreigner. So when we went there to rent, we created our narrative. I was their far cousin from Santiago who has come over with her boyfriend to stay there. Thankfully, my husband is young, he's brown, he doesn't look like a foreigner that much, and he speaks like a Spanish. So if you don't really like talk to him directly, like one on one, you will not realize that he was not Cuban. Like if you look at him, you will know say he can pass as a Cuban. One of the reasons why Cuba is a safe country is because everything is very controlled. Movement is very controlled. If you are going to Havana and you're from another province, you have to show proof, just like how you will do if you're going to another country. You have to show where you're going to be staying. Is there enough space for you to stay there? What are you going to be doing while you are there? And how long you're going to be staying for? So you basically have to go through an immigration process within the country itself. Now, so we come from country. My apologies to those who find it uncomfortable when I code switch my YouTube tribe. I I cannot help it. I feel very comfortable when I chat patois. I know it for some people who don't know me and don't understand, it may find it maybe even a bit disrespectful, but please understand I learned to speak English in Jamaica. So it is very difficult for me to speak like an American, like to have that American accent. Thank God I watch a lot of Netflix in English, and I able to speak to you like this every now and then. But it's been years now since I feel very comfortable chatting patois. So I am going to switch in here, and I hope Uno can forgive me and don't, just keep up with the story. My apologies to you. May I try? I am. I am trying. I am trying, but I'm a people pleaser. I like to please everybody, so I'm gonna try. We decided to stay at that house. Beautiful family, everything, the place nice and everything, very close to my husband's university, very close to my university, very close to the places I go to rehearse for the dance company and everything. Our market was across the street. Beautiful, beautiful place in the city. So the time come where I have to do my immigration papers. Okay, so I had to go to the office. There's nowhere to translate. This is called oficoda, I believe, where I went there with the homeowner. He was the homeowner's son, but his name was on the home title. This is a very rich family that used to have farms and hotels in Santiago de Cuba, and when the revolution came, they took everything away from them and they gave them that house in Havana in exchange for it. They were migrating slowly, so they were about to migrate like the entire family. The big house was divided, so the mother lived in a section, one son lived in another section with his wife and son, and another son lived in another section. So the house was divided in four. That's how big the house was. So we went there to the office and we went through the process of the interview. He explained to them that I was his cousin, and I told them what I was in Havana to do. I told them I'm here to work and study. I had my registration for the university. I was attending university in dance. That means that I will have to have a job and go to the university. Beautiful. Go to the university and work at the same time. So they say, fine, they did all the paperwork. They give you a little piece of paper with all the information, and that piece of paper is valid for 3 months. I had no intention of going back to the country after 3 months. So after that is it. Okay. So although my school was, the course was 3 years, yeah, the course was 3 years, so they would have to give me 3 years, don't it? But I only got 3 months. 3 months permit to stay in Havana. Now, when in the city, they have police presence in every corner. This police is not armed or anything. Their main objective is to control the population, to stop you and ask you for your ID. If you have an ID with an address out of the city, they ask you for the paper that authorizes you to be there. So you will take out that little piece of paper. The little piece of paper, fragile, it looked like it will turn into dust just by looking at it. Me used to have that in a, did I have a bag back then? Yeah, me they have a liquor bag. Oh yes, me they have a liquor bag that my husband carry for me, a liquor Puma bag. So I will have the liquor piece of paper in there, and just every time they will stop me and ask me for my ID, I will show my ID and the piece of paper and where from. You see, when the paper expire, me afraid, me will just dodge. We will see a police in the corner. Me just go around the bush and go around in circles and go around, go up, come down, go around, trying to avoid them because I was so scared that they will ask me and my paper has expired already. I don't remember exactly why is it that I did not renew the paper. I think the guy just didn't want to do it. He just didn't want to go through the process. It's a very long line. You have to wait like you have to join a line for like 2 days to be able to obtain the renovation, to upgrade the paper. That is one of the things that you leave as a Cuban, that it is absurd. I do not know if anywhere else in the world will have a system like this. If you guys know, please let me know in the comments which other country you know of where migration within the country itself is controlled like that. So, this is criminal activity number two. My husband, then boyfriend, had a cell phone. He carried a cell phone from Jamaica and he wanted to make some money. Cell phones in the year 2002 were illegal in Cuba. Cubans were not allowed to have a cell phone. If the police saw you with a cell phone, you will go to prison. Me nah mix words. Me a shout loud and clear. Me nah exaggerate. Me not exaggerate. However, you had Cubans in the city in Havana who had a lot of money and who wanted a cell phone and did not care that if they were caught, they will go to prison. They just want the cell phone. So the man come over the fence because beside the house there was a parking lot. The man come over the fence now and say to my husband, say, "Hey, me quiere vender el celular ese ahí. Hey, you want to sell me that cell phone?" And when me tell you, say, my husband is an entrepreneur from birth, me not exaggerate either. So of course, him want to sell him the cell phone. My husband no business. So him sell the man the cell phone. Yes, the man pay him cash for the cell phone. Him don't have no use for the cell phone anyways. Him never had no use for the cell phone. Who is my husband going to call with the cell phone? He had no use. So he sold the cell phone. All right. Member say there is police in every corner. So the house was like right here, right? There's a police here, there's police here, there's a police here, there's a police here. They are watching everything. They are monitoring everything. My husband did carry some money back from Jamaica and him say my buy a little motorcycle. Now this is another one. This is not so that was a illegal activity number two, right? Because you don't supposed to be selling your cell phone. You don't supposed to be buying a cell phone. Like you're selling an illegal item. Okay. So but how absurd is that? And then you have to put yourself on my husband's shoes, coming from Jamaica, a 19-year-old, and you tell him so you can't sell somebody a cell phone, like, and then when you ask why, nobody has an answer. They just tell you, porque sí, just because. Why me can't sell my cell phone? Just because. Why you can't have cell phone? Because. That's the answer you will receive everywhere. So, him saying one buy a bike. Now in Cuba, back in those days, I think it was up to 2004. uh I don't remember exactly when that this law changed, but while I was in Cuba, the only people that could buy any sort of motorized transportation were Cubans who traveled to another country on a mission, or students, international foreign students. Okay, so for example, my father purchased a vehicle because he was on a mission as a box trainer in Argentina for 5 years. Okay. So, with the 5 years that he worked in Argentina, he had a justification for his source of funds. So the government will say, all right, based on the amount of money that you made while you were in Argentina, and because you went to Argentina, here is a letter that authorizes you to buy a vehicle. Don't think that it's a 0 mile brand new. It was a very old Peugeot 305, I believe. I never went inside the car because this happened after I left Cuba. So the same will happen for doctors, anybody who will go on a mission for an extended amount of it can be 6 months, it have to be like an extended amount of years. You will get the letter that authorizes you to buy a vehicle. For the students now, is the same thing. Okay, but a lot of students did not have the money to purchase the vehicle. So what they do is that they will sell their letters to Cubans. So they will go and buy the vehicle and everything, but then the Cubans will be the ones driving the vehicles. And how the police knew this was a student vehicle, the license plate used to be different back then. It used to be yellow and it used to have a K right behind the province letter. So, for example, if you are in Havana, the license plate will be HK, H for Havana and K for this is a foreigner's vehicle. And then the license plate will be yellow because it was a private one. All of these have changed now. All of these have changed now. We knew a lot of people who made, a lot of students who made a lot of money selling their vehicle rights to Cubans. And even foreigners who had girlfriends in Cuba, they wanted to buy a vehicle for their girlfriend, will go through that route. So my husband come back from Jamaica now and say he want to buy a motorcycle. So very excited about the little motorcycle, go to the dealership, buy the motorcycle, get it was a lot to be able to buy the motorcycle. I did not participate in a lot of the process because I was between school and rehearsals. He did that with his friends. But I remember him going to pick up the motorcycle and then the motorcycle was not working because he needed to fix that. It was the amount of time me push that motorcycle uphill in Havana, it was just very stressful. We fell off the motorcycle. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. So one of our friends had a Cuban friend who said, "Me, I buy the bike from you." And my husband is like, "Sure, buy it. Me no want it. Take it. Take it away from me." So I did not participate in this transaction either. I mean, I tried to take myself for a thing, Me just did not participate in the transaction because transportation was difficult. He might go to the man yard and da 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 da. So him sell the man the motorcycle, him take the money. This was at the time where him decided already that he's not staying in Cuba. He's going back to Jamaica. So him want him money. You understand? Take the money now. And tell me why. Tell me why. One day we come home to the house that we don't supposed to be living in with no paper that authorizes me to be in the city that is not my city. And there's this tall blonde man standing on the other side of the street with him and behind him back. And that man just standing there. And I look 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 and I look. Every day, man well dressed and everything. Man in him 40s. Remember we were in our 19, 18, 19-year old, 19-year old, 19 going into 20. 40 odd, tall, blonde man that looked like some secret agent standing there, standing there looking. Him just looking. He's just looking, he's just looking, he's just looking. 2 weeks, the man standing there and looking. Now, what happened is that the whole transaction between the students and the Cubans and the vehicles and the letter get busted. The Cuban government got drift of what was going on. And every time the police saw a vehicle with a K license plate on the road, they just take the car and carry it to the station and carry the driver to the station. You know how much Cubans go to prison? The students them never get in no trouble. The students them never get in no trouble. I cannot say for certain 100%, but I believe because I haven't spoken about this matter in a very long time. I believe that the whole student can buy a vehicle thing was cancelled at that time. Like no student could have access, granted access to buy any vehicles. They just took away every vehicle. Some people managed to actually give the vehicle to the students to whom they got the letter from. So if I'm a student and I buy the vehicle with you, the Cuban will give me the vehicle for me to drive around. So if the police stop me, ask me for the paper, yeah, it's my car. I'm a student and this is my car. So a few of them were safe because the word went around really quickly. But majority of the vehicles were confiscated. And of course, the guy who bought the motorcycle from my husband was also taken to the station. But because it was not a case where through buying the rights to buy the motorcycle from my husband and more of buying the motorcycle afterwards, his case was different. Nonetheless, that Cuban guy was in a lot of illegal activities. And I say illegal activities because these things that I'm telling you, buy and sell a vehicle, just imagine you as a Jamaican, your government tell you now you can't sell your Kiar. You can't buy a Kiar. Those are the type of illegal activities that were going on back then. So yes, the man that was standing outside of our door was a man from the Seguridad del Estado, state security. And these are people who are basically certified, highly trained, highly paid informants. And this man was there just investigating us, trying to bust us. But when it was about to turn day 14 that he was investigating us for, that is when we left. That was like, I remember coming back the day that we got married and seeing this man standing outside of the house. The day that we got married, my husband rented a car and we went to my grandmother's house and spent some time there. And then we went back to the city and he flew to Jamaica, and I went that same day back to country to never return to that house. So they never saw me or heard from me ever again in that house. So I think that wait a second, because the sun I moved. This story is so long. The sun is moving, and I'm fully clothed because it's so cool. I am actually in a very cold country. I'm not telling you where me there. I think that my husband and I would dodge a bullet. Actually, my husband had to go to the station when the whole motorcycle issue happened. He had to go to the station and they asked him a lot of questions. And the Cuban guy was like, he has nothing to do with anything else. It was just a guy that I was buying the motorcycle from him, and I had plans to send the motorcycle further. Just you can let him go. Like there's nothing, like he's cool. But this man that was standing outside of our door for 2 weeks straight from the Seguridad del Estado, which was very obvious because what business do you have standing there? And you have no uniform or anything like that, and you just look and you're just looking like it was so unnerving, disturbing. And this is something that I spoke about on one of my TikToks when I was expressing the anxiety and the PTSD that I have from living in Cuba. And this is one of those things that added to it. Because just imagine being under that pressure to know that you have somebody outside of your door. And in Cuba, when you do this type of activities that involves foreigners, um, sometimes you do go through the legal system and you do have a trial and you are sentenced, but some other times they just disappear you, meaning they ask you to follow them to the station and nobody knows where you are, nobody knows what happened to you, they cannot see you, they cannot find you. That's it, they just disappear you, they just disappear you. So, needless to say, there's another story that is intertwined to this one. There was a guy that lived across the street from us, very cool guy. My husband used to go and talk to him a lot. And this guy was one of the excluibles, one of the guys that were the only exception that were deported from the United States back to Cuba, because Cuba and the United States never had a deportation treaty until very, very recently. So he was sent back to Cuba from the United States. And he used to tell my husband, you have a visa, you can go to the United States and go to this place where I hid all the money from the East. And it was like his story was like a movie. It was like I'm gonna have a sit down with my husband and see how much of the story he remembers, because we used to love go to talk to him. We used to have bicycles, and he was the ponchero, the guy that fixed up the bicycles in the community. And my husband used to sit down and chat to him for hours and hours because he could speak English, and his story was just magnificent. So that also can make the people them with the security and the police and everybody and all of them very jumpy. But this is just to show you how easy it is to be a criminal in Cuba, how easy it is to commit a crime in Cuba. Simple things like this, like for example, the lady that was renting us the house, she could have ended up in prison. Her son could have ended up in prison, my husband, me, everybody, just over these small little things. And just to give you another example, my poor uncle served 9 months in prison because he had two beef steaks in his backpack that he was carrying to my grandmother. Simple. I have a second cousin who also was in prison during for a very long time while they were investigating some beef incident as well. And so was his sister husband. Three different instances in which family members of mine have had problems with the law because of beef. Now, the law is a little bit more lenient when it comes to the beef thing, but my uncle went to prison about 2 years ago. All these cases were very recent, but the law when it comes to the beef and how you can sell it and all of that has changed for the better little bit. But it's still in the works. It's still in the works. Same thing applied to the lobster. And it was not because season out a season in season or whatever it is. It was just illegal. So I remember when people used to travel to the town, there is a town in Villa Clara, close to where my mom lives, and it's called Isabela. And people used to travel to Isabela to go get the lobster. Huge. Cuba has like the biggest lobsters you have ever seen because of the how the ocean set up. Used to put the lobsters. Women used to put the lobster in the brassiere, the skirt, put up tin and make the bottom look big and thin to smuggle and traffic lobster. The same thing with the beef. Like, I remember they broke into my friend's house and they stole food that was in the freezer, lobster. And they could not call the police and say, hello, them thief the lobster out of the freezer. Because you will go to prison because of that. And there you have it. Not only you as a Cuban have a lot in your mind, in your soul, in your entire being for the lack of everything, but you also have to you just have to be careful. You just have to be careful. This is why whenever you're going to say anything, you have to be very wary of who is around and who is listening to you and things like that. Definitely, this type of pressure added with other simple things as not being able to go inside a hotel with my husband whenever he wanted to have a coffee or whatever. um you know just really 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 added to my mental state. And up to this day, I am now in a foreign country. um 21 years later, I still have all those things in the back of my head, that little voice that tells me you are doing. I'm trying to find the better son, man. Hold on. That little voice that tells me you're doing something wrong, you don't belong here, you should not be here. And always wondering in the back of my mind if we're supposed to be doing this, if we don't supposed to be doing that, like, you know and you're gonna see it on one of my travel vlogs, where I even had a panic attack just because the security approached me. And you will see it in one of my travel blogs. I am trying to keep this channel to my storytelling, to exploring Jamaica, to traveling to other countries. So up to now we have three different segments, and I really hope you enjoy all three of them. They're all very different. They're all the different faces of Flora. It is very easy for a Cuban to be a criminal. I I remember when it was illegal to carry US dollars. My microphone let me down, but let me know in the comments if you would like to hear more details on how easy it was to go to prison back in those days. Remember, I left Cuba in the year 2003. Certain things may have changed, others may remain the same. Just let me know in the comments how would you feel if this was a situation in the country that you were currently living at, and if you know of any other country separate and apart from Cuba that has similar conditions. Thank you so much for watching. Mucha love.